Coogs house. As the spring continues, we continue to learn more and more about one of the most decorated classes in Houston Cougar history.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, a podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Anworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. Please make us first listen each and every day here at Locked On Coogs. And we're doing the conversation, but you don't know what to say. Tell us in the comments down below if you're a corn tortilla or a flour tortilla person. As it is Cinco de Mayo. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. We're going to talk more about them a little bit later. It's got a lot of stuff I want to get into today. I do want to spend the last portion of the show talking about bat and ball sports, baseball and softball, and important weekends that just concluded with significant impact on Big 12 play. I want to spend the second segment talking some about the coming together of the women's basketball roster as Coach Mitchell is putting together a pretty impressive group with some similarities and common themes. But first and foremost, to make sure we talk about Kingston Flemings and Cenac over the weekend. Man, oh man, what a weekend those two had. So if you didn't know, weren't tuning in, whatever, Kingston Flemings and Cenac both played in the Iverson Classic All-Star game over the weekend. There's like a half dozen, not quite that many, like large-scale All-Star games, national-level All-Star games. High school basketball players are, at times, if they're obviously very good, invited to attend. There's the McDonald's game, which is like the one that is the most well-known, I think. Cenac himself got to play in that one as well with Houston Cougar signee Isaiah Harwell. That happened right before the Final Four in April. There's the Jordan Brand Classic. Kingston Fleming got to play in that one. Isaiah Harwell got to play in that one again. Two Cougar signees. This one's one of my more fun ones personally, though, for the nostalgia factor. The Iverson Classic usually has some other players from those early 2000s with the baggy shorts and jerseys and all that as coaches, like Steven Jackson, right? It's a fun time. Iverson's ever present throughout it. It also brings back Reebok, and Reebok sponsors the whole event, and you kind of forget Reebok's around in the basketball space until that weekend. And honestly, it is a celebration of a lot of highlight reel basketball. I don't mean to make this out to be anything other than an all-star game in that sense. But Cenac had 20 points and 15 rebounds. I was really impressed by what he did on the outside, handling the ball, facing up with the guy in front of him, going by guys. Obviously, again, not the highest level of defense that it was an all-star game. But the ball handling is the ball handling, regardless of what the defense is like in front of you. Cenac is a very versatile player. Excited to see what he does when paired with JoJo Tugler in the front court. I project presently Cenac to start at the power forward spot, with JoJo Tugler playing more of the dunker spot, center role. Both guys are going to be really, really impactful. Cenac did play some defense in this game, and I think that should be touted. And part of the reason that he's a Houston Cougars, he's playing defense in an all-star game. So that's probably important as well. But Kingston Flemings ran away with this game. 26 points, 9 assists. He wins MVP for the team he represented there. He scored from three, scored on step back, scored in the mid-range, had a couple dunks, had a couple layups through traffic. He did a little bit of everything. Assists were all over the place as far as like finding guys in various spots and all of that. But Kingston Fleming, in the most Kingston Fleming way, in the most Houston Cougar way, also was matched up with Darius Acuff, who many projected as the number one point guard in the class of 2025 by the end of the recruiting cycle. Kingston had a shine there for a moment in the earlier portions of it. Acuff's a lot more strength-based. He's closer to 6'1", where Kingston's more like 6'4", looks like these days. Kingston's bounce and explosion, while Acuff is strength and he's got quickness, but it's a lot more pensive and decision making, a more traditional feeling point guard that can give you 20 points. Kingston got that matchup and was able to really hold his own. And it felt like Kingston took the matchup personally in a way that I was like, okay, that's why this guy's a Coug. He's at an all-star game. Allen Iverson's watching. It's supposed to be fun. He's like, no, they think that dude's better than me. I'm going to make sure that everyone walks out of this not thinking that. And for what it's worth, the game had, in a very and one mixtape kind of way, a like play-by-play kind of guy on the MC on the mic that was walking around, like very much like adding to the flair of the game in a way that was reminding you of where these guys, Kion Anthony, Carmelo's son is ranked this, and so is ranked. He was shouting out where guys were going and kind of giving you a quick 2 cents on what the Rivals page or 24/7 Sports page or On3, whatever, would say if you were to come across these guys in the course of online before watching them play. And he did shout out that Cenac is going to Houston, Kingston Flemings going to Houston, etc., which was nice to hear. But he constantly said Acuff's the number one point guard in the class. And I feel like every time that happened, shortly thereafter, if Kingston was on the floor, he made something happen. And it's just fun to get to see these kinds of moments out of guys that are going to be Houston Cougars next year as we're rounding out the roster. And I was thinking, I was texting back and forth with my brother on Sunday, and the game happened Saturday. And on Sunday, my brother and I were talking. I was like, okay, I don't know what you would call the best class to ever come through Houston. If you want to talk about Phi Slamma, obviously, that's one thing. It's before recruit rankings. In terms of recruit rankings, it's this one. But like Jarris Walker, Emmanuel Sharp, Terrence Arsenault was obviously a pretty strong class a few years ago. Marcus Sasser lifted a class when he probably wouldn't have helped the star ranking or whatever, right? Once upon a time. Transfer classes included, then you had a whole other layer to it and all of that. This does, though, between the 4 incoming freshmen, 3 of which played in two national level all-star games, 2 of which were players of a Gatorade player of the state in their respective states. Chris Cenac's the number one big man in the country on most metrics. And Bryce Jackson, if you're a Houston person, you know Bryce Jackson, Shadow Creek, right? So you got those 4 freshmen, and then the 2 transfers. You're also bringing in Pop Isaacs and then Cleve Sacco. And Sacco is not quite the best example of this, although if you're playing at the same Houston level, you knew his influence as a big man. But it feels like this is the class we certainly know the most about coming in. That is to say that I can visualize what these guys do in a way that is different than like the question marks you have coming in, which is a fascinating development for a program that's losing so many like constant pieces. Jawan Roberts, LJ Cryer, for what it's worth. It sounds like Ramon Walker. I don't know what's happening with his medical redshirt potentially, but these guys that you knew in the program that are graduating out of eligibility, moving on. Javier Francis, what you knew about them after the fact, but you didn't know what Robert's going to turn into when he came in. You didn't know what it's going to look like when he got here. These guys, it feels like we've got such a great understanding because they're national level recruits. They're constantly talked about by everyone in the country. Houston's got the number one class by most everyone's rankings, as I can find. It feels like we know so much about what next year's team looks like already because we understand how these guys' games work. Fitting the puzzle pieces together, therefore, makes sense. We know what a fast break with Fleming pushing the point will look like. We know what a fast break will look like when Isaiah Howell is out on the perimeter, open for a 3 in transition. We know what it looks like with having Cenac at the 4 out. We have 4 out, 1 in with Tugler down there. We know what Pop Isaacs does. We anticipate the growth defensively out of each of these guys. I think that those are the kinds of things that's really fun about getting ready for next year and not ever thinking about what happened on April 7th. Because ultimately, right, that is kind of everyone else in America is like, okay, what's Houston going to do now? They lost all this talent. Miles Usain's in the NBA draft thing. What's going to happen with that? And I always point out he has until May 28th to say he's coming back to Houston, and I would not be surprised if things stay as they are now. If he does come back to Houston, but regardless, we know so much about next year's roster that I don't feel concerned about next year. Now, we also have faith in Sampson and company and all of that, even with Qantas out the door. I mentioned on Friday's episode, I think last week, one of the episodes, I'm really excited about Econo. I think that's a pretty solid hire. Most people tend to like that guy, and he's coached some pretty good programs. I think those are all good signs. And I think that's an important piece of this, is that we understand what next year's team is going to look like on the men's side. On the women's side, we got some more question marks, but some of those are getting answered. And while new coach Mark Mitchell is going to have a lot to rebuild here, I want to talk about what those pieces are looking like and give an update on what it looks like with that roster right now. But first, today's show is brought to you by everybody's over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trade. Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order the products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest products info to help you get the job done. Right, over 200,000 parts to choose from and over 400 brands. You'll get exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading services, so you always talk to a real person. For trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Park Rangers Locked on Coogs here. We're talking about the Houston women's program kind of putting a roster together now. They've had 6 total commits in the transfer portal this spring, 3 in the last 4 days. And so I want to make sure we talk some about what's coming together. Now they have players to put on the floor. In the last 3 days, they've added Amani Bartlett, Shinteri Anumale, and Kendall Hunter. And they've also got 3 from before, but I want to talk about these 3 and then the whole group of 6 and then kind of what we're seeing out of the 3. So Amani Bartlett is a 6'3" LSU grad transfer. She was a high-end recruit out of high school, went to Houston Christian in the Houston area. Obviously, Houston Christian was a high-end SBC school while she was there. She was the conference MVP, and they won a couple titles while she was there. Extremely defensive-minded, 6'3", forward/center, rotational player as a sophomore and junior at LSU. Won a national championship in that sophomore season while she was there. So brings championship pedigree, SEC play, coming back home, all the good stuff there. Shunteria Anumale is a 5'8" sophomore from the University of St. Louis, but she went to Legacy Sports and Sciences High School. Rotational guard, defensive-minded again, lots of steals, great quickness. Still working on the offense side of her game, but she can lock it down on defense. Kendall Hunter is a 5'7" guard out of Cric, I believe. Went to Texas initially in Texas A&M. She was McDonald All-American in high school. She was a big, big deal in the Houston area in high school basketball. I believe after all of the red shirts, she still has 2 years of eligibility, even after going to Texas and Texas A&M. She had a medical 1 year and an outright red shirt the other. So I think she's actually still got 2 full years of eligibility left if she wants to take it at Houston. And that's the trio that's been signed in the last 4 days. Big gets, though, with SEC high-end talent coming in. I appreciate how defensive-minded all 3 of these signings were. They joined TK Pitts, a 6'1" guard who's originally from Lubbock but went to high school in Tulsa. She played at SMU. 2.3 steals per game at 6'1". Pretty impressive for a big guard. Then Brianna Peguero is a 5'7" guard from Troy, originally Mercer before that, but she's from Jersey Village, Jersey Village. Good score, 35% from three. There's a little bit of a lot of things pretty well. Kind of the jack of all trade, master of none. Like, she's just really good at a bunch of stuff. Looking to expand her game, get some more clock with Mitchell. I get where that's coming from. I also think, though, that 35% from three is going to be important as you're building this roster out. And then Amir Abdur-Rahim, as a guy that liked watching Sharif Abdur-Rahim in the NBA is fun because she's one of his many younger siblings. So originally from Marietta, Georgia. Eligibility from her knee injury at SMU. She started off, let me get the order right here, Notre Dame and then SMU and then Texas A&M. Again, she had a knee injury in her time at SMU, and so then she gets the extra year of eligibility. She's using it at the University of Houston. Great interior scorer and rebounder, big presence again at 6'3". Multiple siblings that have played high-level Division I basketball. Her oldest, or I think Sharif is the oldest brother, was a Vancouver Grizzly a long time ago. And so you got this roster kind of forming and coming together for head coach for head coach Mitchell. And I think that I'm tripping my words because I think about which one of these things has me most excited. On the one hand, 4 of these 6 are from Houston, and they've got ties to the city of Houston, and they're coming back to represent the city. And that tells me that Mitchell gets it. He gets the idea of having the best talent stay home and what that could mean for the program. The other part of me is excited because he's got a handful of women that have, 3 of these 6 have SEC experience, right? Like big time basketball experience. And obviously Mitchell coming from the SEC himself, 2-time SEC Coach of the Year in his time at Kentucky. It indicates he's got a pretty good understanding of what that basketball looks like. He wants to bring women in that have that same kind of mentality and understand what that high level of basketball looks like to Houston as Houston continues to get used to Big 12 basketball. I think that's really, really important as well. I like that they peeled a couple that have SMU in their background. I like that, they pulled women that have seen a bunch of different styles of basketball and transferred from a bunch of different programs and coaches and so on. Yes, the skeptic will say, well, Parker, how many of these women really started? It's probably like 2 that started consistently. How much game minutes are you looking at? Some played 14 and 15, some played closer to 20, some played less than that. I get those critiques of this. I will say that when you look at what the roster was, when you look at what Mitchell was brought in to work with, the rebuild of the program is starting from a pretty strong place here, right? And frankly, we know, obviously, the start is not the point of the rebuild. We saw on the men's side of things when Kelvin Sampson came in, right? He, frankly, was pulling in every transfer that could dribble and walk at the same time he could. He was rebuilding a program in a very different kind of way, where he was just trying to get people that were going to buy into his culture. He was more in on the type of player than the accolades the player had beforehand. Not that I mean he didn't get players that had high accolades beforehand in the earliest days of the rebuild, but that was kind of his fit, and it worked, and it worked, and it worked. Right now, it feels like this program was like, hey, we're just going to find a bunch of talent, and this is the year 1 of what's going to be a big, long process. We just got to start somewhere, right? And I wonder if that's indicative when comparing the two of the time, right? The transfer portal is something that we have now that we did not have in the same way back when Kelvin Sampson got here. Same thing for NIL and all of that. And I wonder, how much of this shapes up. I will say lots of these women, if you look at their analytical numbers, of that play great defense. I think that if you watch the way Mitchell's teams at Kentucky played, that seems to be an important thing. The offensive players he has coming in seem to be guards. Also seems to be a way that this team feels similar to the ideas of what he was trying to put together at Kentucky. And so I'm excited about it. And I am mostly excited about it because I want to stress how much fun it would be to have 2 fantastic basketball programs happening at the same time in the same season of the year, in the same gym, in the same sport. I don't think there's a whole lot of other. I mean, even baseball and softball are functionally a little different, right? Track is a little similar. If you're a school that has boys and girls volleyball, I guess that's similar. It just feels different when they're men and women playing the same sport, and you're good at both, dominant at both. That's a lot of fun for a campus. I really want that. And I really want to watch that. I think Mitchell's doing a great job of building towards that. We know the basketball's got a level of excellence they got to uphold as well. And so I'm excited about this one. I hope you are too. I'm excited about these 6 women joining the program. More as more join. But we mentioned baseball, softball being similar. They had very different weekends. So let's jump into it. But first, today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go, okay, that might happen to me every now and then. Anyway, between dining out, online shopping, Mother's Day is coming up, entertainment, it's easy to lose track of all that. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility to take control over your finances. And Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. To complete financial command center, track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. Again, teacher, coach, podcaster, all the accounts, one place, one single spot. I love how easy the app is, the interface, the dashboard, it's all right there. One spot for you. Take control over your finances. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first. Yes, monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first full year. Park Rangers Locked On Coogs here, and things are heating up on the diamond. In baseball, Houston had a must-win weekend, and win they did. I want to come back and touch on this. I was talking about it a little bit last week, but the baseball program kind of had to have 3 wins this weekend. They legitimately needed to have 2 wins this weekend. Houston managed to get the sweep over Utah in baseball. It's funny, Utah talked all that crap about sports. Houston seems to beat them in most things, most everything. Anyway, Houston beats Utah in baseball all 3 games. It looked like on Friday they had blown the first one. Gave up the lead in the 5th and 6th innings. Game's kind of getting away from them a little bit. Energy seemed dead, and then a rain delay pushed the rest of the game from Friday night to Saturday noon. They'd have the Saturday night game and the Sunday noon game. They regrouped and won that. Then they went on to win the next 2. They won the 21 innings between Saturday and Sunday combined 18-7. Right, that's pretty impressive difference between the 2 games, especially when you factor in Sunday felt kind of like a bullpen game for the Houston Cougars. Just a lot of different arms on the mound as they just continue to blow out the Utah Utes on Sunday. Tyler Cox, we should point out, had an 8-hit weekend. Xavier Perez had 6 and a homer. It was the first Big 12 sweep of the season. The 10 runs on Sunday was the most the Cougs have scored in a Big 12 game this season. And Houston's looking to maintain a spot in the Big 12 tournament. Again, out of 14 programs, or 16 schools, but only 14 baseball programs. 12 make the tournament. Houston's looking to stay in there at that 10-11 spot as of things right now. And so that's an important thing to keep an eye on. Had they lost a couple this weekend, they had a real danger of falling out. They end the season with a series at Arizona State and Arizona as their final 2 Big 12 series. Both of those teams are in the top quarter of the standings. That's a pretty daunting finish. So you want to make sure you're securely in there and you can peel a few games out of those series as you get there. Good deal. Again, the Texas A&M Aggies come to the Third Ward on Tuesday. Not a Big 12 game, obviously, but a big test for Houston in a local kind of way. Speaking of big tests, it feels like the other bad ball sport continues to fail those. After losing on Sunday, Houston falls to 4-18 in Big 12 play. They are 8-41 over the last 2 seasons in Big 12 play. That's last place this season, last place presently this season, last place last season. Both of those are bad for the folks keeping score at home. Both of those are bad. And Coach Vaselli has, the criticism off the field we can mention briefly, but I do wonder at what point the criticism of the product on the field warrants the, does she keep her job? Do we need to go a different direction in the softball program? I mean, Eddie Nunez has shown up and shown he wants winning programs, and winning is, at the forefront. He wants to bring in dollars, but he understands the idea that winning brings in those dollars. And, everyone loved Coach Hugh on the women's basketball side, but they weren't winning games. He had to go. He's now an assistant at Virginia, and a role that I frankly, side note, think he'll do really well in, and hope for all the best for him. But anyway, Vaselli, so she runs a softball program, has come in last in the Big 12, predicted to be last this year, 2 years in a row. Not ideal, not great. Is there a bunch of softball talent in Houston? You betcha. Greater Houston area, East Texas, oh my goodness. You can throw a stone and hit a softball field with a player on it that can help you out. But Sally can't seem to put a team together. And we talked a little bit with the folks at Scott Holman last year. I don't want to step on their reporting because they were the ones that kind of came forward first with it. They had some anonymous sources from within the program and locker room about some off the field things, and in the locker room, in the dugout kind of things as well. That ultimately, I think, you could also argue lead toward the we should fire the softball coach kind of things, like being okay with different levels of assault and alleged assaults and those kinds of problems, and over the top alleged hazing incidents, and over the top alleged violent threat incidents, and over the top. I say alleged because this is not my reporting. I'm trying to put things together that, again, the Scott and Holman folks do a great job of bringing up all the time. And they've got a lot more insider on it. And we had Sam on, I think it was Sam, back when the first leak happened on that. And the conversation then was, is the off the field issue enough for firing Coach Vaselli? And Sam and I were talking, and the Scott and Holman folks were talking. I think it might. It's allegations, but the allegations aren't good. And then you factor in the on the field stuff is bad. And it's not that the girls aren't trying hard or playing hard or anything like that. That they can't put it together. And when you have bad locker room and dugout culture, it can make it hard to put things together. Those things tend to go hand in hand. Look at the best program on campus, best program in the Big 12, got the best culture in America. That's the Houston men's basketball program. And I'm not saying it's fair to make everyone put on that pedestal where everyone has to be that, but it's certainly the gold standard. And it's right there in the same campus, same student athletes. And as much fun as it's talk about the ones we know that are coming to campus next year that we did at the top of this episode, it wasn't always that, but it was always a culture, and it was always building to something. And you got to wonder if everyone's doing that on campus. Now, anyway, we got a lot to talk about this week. Again, more transport stuff going in and out. All kinds of things happening in the football offseason. We mentioned bat and ball sports. The baseball programs at A&M Tuesday. I like beating the Aggies. I don't know about you. So we'll talk about things throughout the week as they come up. So hit subscribe. Hit the bell so you know we're live. That we can be with us every day like the everydayer I know you want to be. Everydayers are the best kind of people. Locked On Coogs, the prime member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day. Go Coogs.